Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada. In episode 59, we speak with Drew Mitchell on physical literacy. I just want to introduce my good friend, Drew Mitchell. I've known Drew for 20 plus years, and we both, he was involved in high-level sport as an athlete and then got into managing sort of the sports medicine and physical preparation for national teams, Olympic teams in Canada, and was picking people to be service providers for different national teams and national team athletes. Long story short, he's transitioned into what I would call more sort of focused on general population, but physical literacy for youth development, sport, and life. And so it's kind of gone full circle, and he can talk a bit more about the differences and what he enjoys about what he's doing now versus what he used to do. Not that there wasn't value, but it's a totally different angle right now. But I still think what he's doing now is going to pay dividends in the long run for sport and movement and health and all those sorts of things. So,
well, Drew, first off, thank you for coming on. It's great to meet you. And I want to first start with what Derek first brought up about you, is that you were focusing on placement. It's pretty much what we were just talking about, right? So what would happen? An organization would come into you and say, we need these types of coaches. And pretty much you would just figure out, all right, an organization needs a physical therapist, a strength coach. You're the one to kind of find that person and place them. So it's exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And are you allowed to talk about some of the constraints that you were dealing with there? Because I'm always under the impression that some of the best strength coaches, and that's not to knock all the strength coaches out there with professional organizations, but a lot of them just aren't, I don't feel, as qualified as they need to be managing the strength and conditioning process, the physical therapy process, call it what you want, of a $1 billion organization.
Yeah. And that's the big change, I think, from when I was doing it, quite a while ago, 15, 20 years ago, is professional sport has kind of changed the landscape a lot around this. So I was working in our national team and Olympic stream programs, low funding, you're working off begging favors a lot of the time, right? It wasn't like pro sport where the limitation is not the resources. The limitation is the will to actually do a good job. And so in our particular case, I would spend time building relationships with people, because part of the challenge, you can have a person who's really good at what they do, but they're really shitty in the group, right? Like they just can't get along with others. The chiropractors as a group are notorious for wanting to go way outside their scope of practice, and they've got a solution for everything, right? So it's getting everybody to kind of work together around this, build a longitudinal tracking on the health side for athletes. Like if somebody's getting hurt, who's managing it, who's recording it, who's making sure the therapy's in place, what happens next, what's return to play look like, all these sort of things, right? Like somebody has to manage that. And the problem is we don't put enough focused effort in return to play, proper return to play. And then if you go down into the high school system in your country, as an example, or the NC2A system, which is an injury mill waiting to happen, it's way worse, right? When you think of all the situations, and you've got some young kid who just wants to perform, he just wants to do the best he can. And you've got a coach who maybe really doesn't know what's going. They've got a volunteer athletic therapist or somebody who calls themselves that. It's a bit scary in the grand scheme of things.
Right. What happens with with the organizations? A lot of time, what basically happens is you'll have a strength coach, or you'll have someone who's hired to come in and do a job for that organization. But then come the off season, there seems to be a disconnect in a lot of professional sports.
Yeah.
And, I'm always, people, I get reached out to daily, and someone will say, my posture's going bad. How do I fix it? And I'm like, well, it may not be a specific exercise. It might just mean you standing a lot more. So let's try standing, twice as much as you sat in a chair 8 hours a day. Try sitting 4 hours tomorrow, like every half hour, something that simple. So, but with a lot of times what scares me is that you're picking a team. You're assembling a team that's going to go in and it's going to do a job for this organization. And then suddenly the season's over and the players take it upon themselves to train with their cousin. Or which honestly, you got 3-4 months in an off season, you could totally screw up an athlete.
Oh yeah.
Why is that allowed?
Well, it's, in the amateur sphere, and I mean, what is that now? Like, well, who is actually an amateur athlete anymore? But in the amateur sphere, there isn't usually the resources or the will to, like a lot of people. So Duncan Keith plays for the Chicago Blackhawks, right? Defenseman. Yeah. He's from Penticton. He's from where we are right now in Canada. And here's a guy, for most of his career, couldn't water ski, couldn't downhill ski, couldn't do any of those other things, right, in the off season, right? And what they do is they say, this is all the stuff you can't do, but they don't necessarily work out the pathway of, here's what we think, we want to work with you to make sure we maximize your potential in the off season. So it is fascinating to watch.
Well, Derek, you were talking about it the other day with who was the Olympic athlete? There was a runner that got together with a shot putter or a guy who threw hammer, remember? And was it you talking about that? And they either got married or he started taking over.
Oh, yeah. It was a Russian. Yeah, right. Where the hammer thrower took over the sprinter's weight program because he's like, the woman was like a world champion sprinter. And then she got married and the guy's like, oh, your weight program sucks. And so he fixed her weight program and then she ran slower. So
interesting.
So you have to be careful.
Yeah, exactly.
I just realized you can really screw up an athlete.
Yeah.
I just realized that, you don't, I'm in this business for 20 years and you like to believe you're really good at what you do. But if Rory McIlroy comes to me tomorrow, and I work with a lot of golfers and I know Rory, and he asked me about a program, I'm being really, really careful. I mean, here's a guy who swings the club perfectly, does everything on the
super fit guy too, right?
Super fit guy. But, when I got together with him recently, we were talking about training. Everything he was doing, I was like, he's like, well, it's not fascinating. It's not interesting. I'm spending an hour and a half a day in the gym. Like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm working on some breathing, and I got a few, and they're gonna feature his program on Golf Channel Plus, and it's gonna be interesting because I think people are gonna look at it and say, oh wow, this is like nothing crazy. And he spends a few minutes breathing. He spends 3 movements on a dynamic warm up, and then he kind of breaks it up into like a more of a linear day and more of like a multi-directional day of like strength. And his program's probably done all in 30, 35 minutes. So when he was talking to me, he was almost like, I'm like, dude, you're training for sport. Like, this is what you should be doing. To me, I'm more impressed by this than most of the other crap I see out there because coaches try and act like heroes and they're trying to go in and do that. That's that entertainment effect where they're trying to give that training effect of like, oh yeah, we're going to kick your ass. And then you legitimately end up hurting the athlete. And Derek, you probably see it as much, if not more in any sport, but sprinting. I mean, you could totally destroy someone, correct?
Yeah, there was this whole thing on Twitter that I was engaging in yesterday and people are saying, oh yeah, people are getting hurt running. And so I just jumped in and said, well, have you actually looked at their running and have you tried to fix that? But they're looking for gym exercises or band exercises or whatever, something that's not even related to the problem, which is probably a mechanical efficiency problem.
Right.
And for some reason, people don't want to address the elephant in the room.
Right.
So I don't know. And you probably see that all the time in terms of like if we jump to the childhood obesity and mental health issues, what's the problem, right? Like, what are you seeing?
Well, it's fascinating because think about it when we were kids, right? What did we do when we were in our neighborhoods? We tore out of the house. We were gone for the day. We made up our own games. There was no adults telling us what to do. We had a lot of independence. We had a lot of, you talk about decision making. Oh my God. Like that's what we did. And today that's pretty much gone. Like it's gone. Mainly because mom and dad or parents are scared. There's a white panel van around the corner that's going to snatch your kid, even though, in both countries, statistically, that is not played out. 90% of the abductions are from family members. They're not from strangers. And so what a colleague of mine puts it, well, we can either kill them slowly or we can kill them quickly. Like that's your choice. Right. So, this type 2 diabetes in both our countries is ramping up pretty damn quickly. And not only that, it's getting younger.
Yeah.
Like the whole correlation is just getting younger. What even worries me more is there's a whole bunch of kids that just never get to experience quality movement. They never get the opportunities. They never get good coaching. They never get supportive environments to try this stuff because either mom and dad are ignorant to it. Mom and dad don't care. Mom and dad don't have the money to any plethora of reasons. But as a society, what's going to happen? Like, we have healthcare in our country. We're going to get killed. Like all these people that are non-movers right now, like this is the smoking of 40 years ago.
The school systems aren't helping though, right? I mean,
they're not.
When I was in elementary school, every day, I remember, so it's come full circle. I moved back into my hometown. My kids are in the exact same elementary school that I was in. My daughter is going up to the same high school I was in, 7 through 12. It was a junior high and high school. And every day when I was in school, I had gym class.
Yeah. With a gym teacher.
With a gym teacher. Every day I was in school, we had recess. And what did we do at recess? We kicked the ball. We played baseball. You literally had 2 hours because you ate lunch quick and you wanted to get on the gym. You basically probably had an hour and 45 every day during school where you committed to sweating, running, throwing, jumping. And now I'm looking at my kid's schedule and I'm like, wait a second, Donnie, you only have gym twice a week or once a week? Like, this is insane. So we're going to take our kids and we're going to sit them from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., giving them one recess. We're up in New York half the year. The weather's shit anyway, snowing and raining out on you. So, they got to now sit inside. No, it's disgusting. And then you start asking about productivity. Do I want my son taking another math class or do I want him moving around? Listen, I just believe there's so much you could teach a young kid, a young adult in a day. And I'm going to have every parent in the world yelling at me right now. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to devalue our educational system or saying teach our children less. But I do know, you look at companies like Google now, and you look at what they're doing with these little recovery pods, and you're looking at what specific countries are doing with vacation times and allowing them to go unlimited or organizations unlimited vacation time. And they're starting to see that these organizations and these workers are just becoming a lot more productive than saying, you got to be in here at 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. and you're not leaving. You're going to outwork everyone until 6 p.m. and we're not going to move except when you're going to run down to the cafe for lunch. You're establishing a sedentary lifestyle. People are slowly dying and they're losing their productivity. But it's not starting when you graduate college anymore. It's starting now in technically the first grade now.
Oh, totally. Like you're spot on. The education system, in my mind, has abdicated their role in long-term health. They just have, right? Like, because they've programmed out everything you talk about. They've programmed out PE every day to now twice a week. In many cases, in our province, in the elementary system, no PE teachers teaching PE, right? So you've got Mrs. Smith, marvelous woman and everything else, out there and trying to teach PE. She has not only does she not know how to teach PE, she doesn't even know how to organize 25 kids in one space. Like, it is shocking. Don't walk to school. Don't walk home from school.
Right.
Like, you start to cumulatively add that up in a day and you go, oh my God, like this is basic math. Calorie count, and then you bring in sugary drinks, amount of sugar we eat in our diet and everything else. You wonder why we have a problem. Yeah. But, I think that one of the biggest things, the physiological components are stark, they're real. You can measure them. Yeah. Where I think our kids are really missing out is social connectivity. They don't connect enough. They don't, if I'm on, they're texting each other when they're in the same freaking room. I know, it's nuts, right? But like, to look a kid in the eyes and to be doing an activity with them. So small group, medium group, large group games, all these sort of things. It's not complicated. It's super easy actually to get this stuff instilled, but nobody is compelled to want to do it. And as a system, we're failing our kids.
Couldn't agree with you anymore. I mean, Derek, what even scares me now is the ability. It was a few weeks ago, a brand reached out to me and they were DMing me, and we were actually sitting there DMing each other on the spot. And the conversation started going south, and I just went, whoa. I said, what's your phone number? I want to call you. And I called him, and he just started laughing. He goes, I'm glad you called me. I hate the direct messaging. I could tell our tone was coming off. And then there was a tone. There was the ability to communicate. In business, where people are losing the ability to communicate. And yes, there's pros. There is. Like I can work from the train now, and I can send emails out. I can communicate with people, and I get that. But what's also making me nervous is that ability to communicate for our children. What's going to happen if my son or daughter one day, they want to get married and have kids? What is that communication process going to be like? Mm-hmm. Are they going to be? It sounds ridiculous what I'm saying, but like, I don't want my kids to live a long, like, lonely life of like, how do I meet someone? And I'm hearing it now from other people who are that are younger. They're not my generation. They're in their 20s, they're in their 30s. I'm 42 now. So that click beforehand when, Tinder and all these apps came out where people were just, I was the old fashioned way for me. I used to have to go out. I used to have to meet a woman on the streets in New York City or have the guts to go talk to them or be out at dinner or bar and do it the way that we used to do it. Nowadays, it's not like that. And people are like, wait, this is getting a little weird. The whole communication process has died. No one wants to talk anymore. It's all through texting. Scary stuff, man.
Well, and the repercussions, I think, are some of the outcomes we're seeing in our society, right?
Like what? Can you go through some of them?
Well,
seriously,
mass shootings. Would that be one of them?
No, go ahead, go through them. I want you to say it. I mean, it's
it is shocking. We have social deviance, like we just do, because people don't know how to interact. I mean, what about this whole wave in the last couple of years about guys not getting dates with girls and lashing back around that, like they're putting themselves into self-abstained celibacy because they can't get a date. Right. And there's all this weirdness around it.
Yeah, but doesn't that have to do with society? I mean, look at society as a whole now. Yeah. And you even start, I'm old fashioned. I grew up in a catering background. My grandfather, as a kid, used to have to go work at a fruit stand before school. After school, he was back at the fruit stand working with his father. Yeah. It was no joke. There was this level of work ethic that a lot of people are missing out on. And nowadays, you're in a job for a year. I had someone come to me recently, I can't mention names, but they said, you know what? I've been working here. I'm doing everything that you asked me to do. And I just stopped for a second. I looked at him and I says, you're right. That's called your job.
Yeah.
But think about what you just said. And he was a young kid. And I'm like, you want me to, I appreciate our relationship, employee, boss relationship, call it what you want, but you want a pat on the back because you're coming in and you're doing the minimal requirements.
Yeah.
And that is part of the problem.
The whole standards dropped, right? The whole standards dropped.
Standards are dropping. That work ethic is dropping, but now it's the same thing. These same people who are having trouble getting dates, they're almost throwing a little bit of a hissy fit.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. Dude, go. I used to go talk to women on the street. You know what? I get shot down.
They call that stalking today. I think.
No, it's not. It's stalking. If they say no and you repeat, that's stalking. I got the point. Trust me. But no, I think it builds character. I think that sort of thing also builds these interpersonal skills and the ability to go up and take some chance and take some risk. And Derek's laughing. He's like, "How the hell did we go into this dating talk?"
This is good.
They're all related, man. These are all related.
It is related, and you think, you were able to do that because you had a level of confidence and you had a level of interpersonal skills that at least gave you the impetus to give it a try. Right. And the problem today is because kids have less and less opportunity to be interacting face to face or even in small group, is they have less of that. And society is actually not creating any opportunities for that to happen. It's actually creating less opportunities.
It's a skill, though, that sometimes I had to develop it. I was, as a young kid, I did not have any confidence. I was in second grade. I had a hearing problem. I had a stuttering problem. I got made fun of. I was in a special ed class. At that age, I wasn't talking.
And look at you now.
All involved. Then I was picking women up on the subways. But seriously, what was the driving force there? It was just no one was sitting there pushing me or patting me on the back when it got to a point where if I wanted to meet a woman, if I wanted a job opportunity, If I wanted to get in front of a publicist, or if I wanted to get in front of a magazine, or if I wanted to get, if I wanted that, I had
anything. Yeah.
Anything. But like, that's called work. That's called work ethic. That's called taking risk. They all apply to each other. It's the same stuff. Like I'll tell someone, I was talking to a client of mine the other day. He's a very successful private equity guy. And I said, listen, this isn't any different than fitness. You want to get into shape. What you've done in your life and your path of private equity, the reason why you're on a Forbes list right now, take the same principles you've applied to that and apply it to getting into better shape. Yeah. Start at the finish.
It is amazing.
Look at what you have to do every day. No, seriously. Look at what you have to do every day to be great. Work backwards. You're going to have your good days and bad days. You're going to get rejected. You don't give up. You've developed a level of resiliency. But you're one human being when it comes to money. And then when it comes to losing body fat or being able to move or getting out of back pain because you really don't have anything wrong with you structurally, like you're just giving up. You're just throwing it in the air. But it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Sorry about the rant, Derek.
Don played really high level baseball, Division I, and I mean, baseball, you're losing 70-80% of the time, right? In terms of going up the bat. So I mean, if you're in the major leagues and you go 3 for 10 your career, you're in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Think about that. Think about that stat. I mean, it
is shocking when you think about it. Success is hitting 1/3 of the time, right? So, but you look at the success-driven structure we have right now. Like you always have to succeed. Instead, we should be looking at providing situations where there's a level of challenge, where there's successes and failures. Like you learn from failure. That's how you become better. If we're always making sure that our kids are safe and that they're not going to fail and everything else, we're not setting them up in a good pathway. They're not setting them up in the pathway you just talked about.
Right. Have you noticed that? I mean, maybe I see this more on social media, but people will talk about their failures, but they'll talk about their failures after they become successful again.
Yeah.
Think about that. I think it's unbelievable. So you'll have these young, influencers and like, oh, I failed, or Gary V, I failed more times I've succeeded. Well, I didn't hear you talk about that when you're on Wine TV or when you're hosting your YouTube channel. Like, why weren't you talking about you failing then? Like, seriously, like, it's just, everyone, society has gotten very, it's gotten scary. And the reason why I'm saying scary is that I still take that old fashioned approach with my kids, and I'm still kind of a hard ass with them. And when we're at dinner time, no, they're not using their phones, and they're using it on weekends. And the other day, my son didn't respond or answer me quick enough, or he was dragging ass upstairs. So I said, bring your phone down. And I said, you lost this till tomorrow. Can I have it back? Absolutely not. Ask me again, you're losing it tomorrow. It's literally that type of conversation. And if you beat it into his head more and more, call it what you want. I'm a believer that they will learn respect. They will learn work ethic, and they will learn that there's consequences.
Yeah. And that's the key word. Consequences, I think, are so critical. There's very little follow through. There's very little accountability, and there's certainly no consequences, right? For most circumstances. And I think kids have figured this out, right? They've started to figure this thing out. And I think parents get sucked in. Like you think back to when you were in school, when you were in grade school, the level of respect you had for your teacher, the way your teacher communicated with you, and you look at it today. And that relationship is totally flipped around, right? And I think it's hurting our education system in many ways. And I'm not saying, there's good teachers. There's just like there's good things, bad things in every group of working population. The thing that I find very interesting is that we've given into this idea that a good work ethic with structure and consequences and challenges and accountability doesn't seem to be good enough anymore. Doesn't seem to be the way we want to work, right? And yet you used the word productivity earlier. As a country, I think the United States needs to be worried that as a workforce,
I agree.
You compare it to the Scandinavian countries, where on the happiness scale, like 3 of the 5 Scandinavian countries are in the top 5 of the world in happiness scale. Well, guess what? What comes with productivity? More happy, like the whole thing is connected, right? It's not just beating people with a stick. That doesn't work.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like that whole Scandinavian thing. They went to them and said, "You guys are the happiest countries. Like, what's the key to your success?" And the one guy's like, low expectations, right? So I think, yeah, you can't succeed all the time. You got to be kind of here so that you can have that room for happiness. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to win all the time, like you're just going down.
Yeah.
Who was it? It was a coach for which women's basketball team was it, Derek? It was awesome.
UConn, like Oriama, or whatever.
UConn. It was it'll pop into my head in a second. One of the bigger teams, a UConn caliber, and he says, everyone has to win. The problem with society today is everyone's got to win a trophy.
Yeah.
Even my son. My son is a diehard baseball player. He's 10, and he plays ice hockey. And we went to the awards, and they did the awards a little bit differently, and bigger trophies went to the kids who deserved it. Most improved, MVP.
Yeah.
And they changed the names now. They're not calling it MVP. There's different words now to not make kids feel as bad.
Yes.
And my son turned around and said, was upset. I go, what's wrong with you? And he goes, well, I wanted that. I go, well, you didn't work hard enough to get that. I said, and you may not want to. I said, first off, I want you to do this because you're having fun and you're enjoying it. But if it really means a lot to you to become better, then you got to put some time in. He put time in. So don't think that someone's going to sit here and hand you a trophy. That's not what life's about. But now everyone's got to get a trophy. All the young, no kids can have their feelings hurt. If two kids have a confrontation in school, I got my ass kicked growing up, and vice versa. Like, it's happening. I'm not saying I want kids fighting in school, but let them figure it out a little bit. Like, it's going to be okay.
What happened to sports day? Did you have sports day where you went out and you just competed?
Yeah, field day. We used to call it field day. And you had your blue team versus your red team. And they would award the first, second, and third place to the fastest people and the one who could throw the ball the furthest. And then suddenly, there was no winners. And I think it's setting a terrible example.
So Don, think about that. So take that same example inside the school setting and go, do they do that with math? Do they do that with science? No. You get 90 if you work hard and get 90 in math. That's like you're recognized for your achievement.
I've actually never thought about that. It's one of the best things I've ever heard. Like, it's perfect.
Every other subject, they pursue excellence, right? They have no problem with that. But when it comes to gym class or PE, it's totally different.
Imagine me turning to my dad and saying, Dad, I didn't get into Princeton. My feelings are hurt going to the school system. My feelings are hurt that you guys did not accept me to Princeton. I didn't have the grades. You didn't give me the opportunity, and start blaming that whole system. No, I didn't work hard enough.
Yeah.
I didn't work hard enough. Plain and simple. If I wanted to get the grades to go to Princeton, I'm convinced right now, and I wasn't the smartest human being, I could have studied hard enough and made it my life's calling to be the best student possible. I did not choose that in high school. And because of that, I got what I got. I went to a Division I school. I went to a great program, and I enjoyed it, and I had a great time. But I'm not sitting there kicking and crying. Nowadays, kids kick and cry.
Yeah. Well, look at the whole scandal around these guys getting their kids into university programs, right? The whole money thing, that's just nuts.
Well, jump into that for a second, because that to me, that was so. I almost felt like. When your grandfather or your parents would turn around and go, wow, I must be getting old. Wow, they have what now? They have hoverboards? Wow, I must be. I literally, that was my response. I said, holy shit, I'm officially old. Because I never imagined, I never thought about this. When I was 20, imagine the day when I used to say this, imagine the day when people are just flying around New York City. I've said that. I never said imagine the day when the mom and dad are just going to bribe a university to get their child in. I never thought that was going to happen.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But okay, so I'm going to pose it to both you guys because you guys are doing a good thing here.
Sorry.
How do we fix it? It's kind of like you see that report about climate change. If we don't do something now or over the next 12 years, we're screwed. What does that look like in terms of the fitness?
Well, I want to ask Drew, but I think my answer is simple. We're screwed. There's certain things in life that so I heard someone say this morning. I think it was actually Gary Vee. He said, and I don't listen to him a lot, but one of his things popped up in my feed, and I went, oh, shit, that makes sense. He said, you know what? I am not going to be an NFL quarterback. There's just certain things in life, you just got to move on from it. Certain things aren't fixable. I don't think this is fixable.
He's also a Jets fan, too, so I can see where he's coming from.
Drew, what's your opinion? I'm being pessimistic for the first time in my life right now. I don't think it's fixable.
Yeah, because I was going to say, Don, my sense of you is you're a pretty positive guy. So are you positive that we're screwed, or?
No, I'm just being a baby. I'm throwing my hands in the air. I'm throwing a temper tantrum because I didn't get the person.
I'm going to be a bit more Canadian and optimistic. How's that sound? And go. I think this absolutely can be fixed because we broke it, and I think it's not a physiological issue. It's not a biomechanical issue. It's a behavioral issue. And until we fix the behavior, nothing's changing, right? And so part of my work in Canada right now is to try and do big systems change. But we're doing it cumulatively at the community level. Because at the community level, you can actually get, for the sake of a different term, get shit done, right? You can get people together. They'll come together on a common focus. They'll collaborate their resources, which is really hard for people to do, right? Like education doesn't want to work with recreation. Recreation doesn't want to work with sport. Sport doesn't want to work with health. But if you can get them all at the table and kind of focused, we're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. We see some potential, but I'm playing the long game, 10, 20, 30 years. Like it's going to take a while.
Right. And where does it, so you're saying it starts at the community level. So
yeah,
I say it's not fixable. There's only so many people out there doing what you're doing right now, correct?
Oh, there's very few.
Right. There's very few. So now we're in a country with how many people?
Yeah, you've got 330 million.
Okay, so how many schools now? And you can't cover that.
Yeah.
So that's when I say it's not fixable. It's not to be pessimistic, but I just feel like you could sit there and try and pick off one at a time, and it's gonna trust me, it's gonna make a difference. And God bless you, man. You're on a stairway to heaven, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Did you see the HBO Chernobyl series?
Oh my God, was that dark?
Oh, you gotta see it.
You gotta watch it,
because when they do the cleanup, they bring in like 750,000 guys, and they're like scrubbing blades of grass with toothbrushes.
Oh, wait a second. No, I did see that. It actually scared me. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. That's where we're at, though. We need a million people out there doing this.
Does this start with our government, though? Is it because there's a way to do it where you can say, oh, we're technically fixing it, but 30 years, no chance. Like it's going to take hundreds of years at that rate. Or is this have to start with our government, where our government system changes, and one person, maybe it's our president, say who you want, turns around and pretty much says, nope, I agree with this. We're changing this in all school systems now. We're going to allot a certain amount of money for our taxes to, start having gym every day and hiring a gym. Gray Cook the other day. And have you met Gray Cook, Derek?
I haven't heard. Oh, I've been at some events where he's at. Yeah.
Sure, I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's one of the creators of FMS, and really smart guy. Kind of, I always call him like a hillbilly. Like he's got like that. He's just a great dude. But he said that he is now the gym teacher at his I think at his high school. And Gray's made, or high school or elementary school. Gray's made millions of dollars. Does not have to worry about money. The guy does very well, controls his own schedule, but he says, no, I donated my time. I think it's like Tuesdays and Thursday nights or something. I'm getting the days wrong, but he's basically going in to teach gym class because they do not have gym class. So he's like, no, I've donated my time and I'm just doing that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we need. That's what we need more of.
Well, and we need, like part of the challenge in Canada we have as well is, and I would say it's probably the same thing in the United States, is that we're not even training teachers to do the job. There's so many things we could do that are not that complicated. It's like somebody in the faculty of education at all the universities got together and said, guess what? We're going to totally screw up PE, and we're going to make math and language arts the priority. And all we want to make sure is our kids are literate and they can do math.
Yeah. And even in universities, programs that were called physical education degrees have now changed. They want to be like kinesiology, human kinetics, whatever. So they've actually made physical education a bad thing. Like, we don't want to do physical education. So
there's a whole stigma connected to it, right? But it also gets back. Mom and dad need to take some responsibility here, right? Because they've shit the bed here in many ways. Two things they've done, I think, that are like, it really is the adult's fault, so to speak. One is restricting that movement in the neighborhood that we all had, right? That ability to go out and play with your friends and be, roam. I could roam from home, miles from home. Now you can't even roam in the backyard. So second thing is they got their fingers into the sports system and they've totally screwed up sport. My kid's going to be in the NHL. He's 9. He's going to be in the NHL. No literature supports early performance for later performance ever, anywhere. No. Right? So, but, it's like parents have a block to that. They don't care. So it's what the adults have said to the kids is, I know what's best for you, rather than, why did kids get involved in sport? Fun and friends. Why do they leave sport? It's no longer any fun, and my friends are gone because these adults have weaned them all out.
Right.
Right.
What about, you start trying to think about easier ways to establish. What are we really asking for here? You're asking for parents to tell their kids to put the phones down for a certain period of time during the day. Mm-hmm. And, we're asking the school systems to really start implementing a healthier lifestyle into that environment, into the school environment, because sitting from 9 to 3 every day is not healthy.
Nope.
And it all seems to come around dollar signs. This all seems to stem from, schools having budgets and, not being able to afford good PE teachers. And it's like, wow, why not just have a chaperone and turn physical ed class into a kind of a virtual reality game, or whatever happened to the track where like kids used to have to just go run one day or play soccer another day. These are simple things that, trust me, kids know you can organize a soccer game. It's not rocket science. Just getting the kids to run around a field or run around a track, it's pretty easy stuff. A basketball game, how hard is that?
But here's the challenge, Don. There is a growing number of kids who don't have the ability to do that because they don't even know their fundamental movement skills. They can't throw, they can't run, they can't catch. And the thing is, those are all learned. They're not innate. It's not like all of a sudden it comes creeping out of you. Now, like math and like language arts, some kids are better at it and some kids are worse. Some kids need more practice, some kids need less. And it's the same application. And the thing is, dodgeball, such a popular game, right? So what's the basic tenet to dodgeball? Well, the kids who are good at dodgeball pretty much have the kids who need the practice and need to play more dodgeball out of the game in the first 30 seconds.
Right.
Right. So you sit there and you go like, you can actually re-engineer these things to actually make it so that Johnny, who's not as, physically gifted as Joey over here, we want to make, maybe they buddy up and they actually can support each other around this. This is the other thing is I think the kids have a part in this to become part of the solution. Older kids to younger kids. You think back, if you had any siblings, what are we always trying to do? We're trying to emulate our older siblings, right? We're trying to chase them down. We're trying to be as fast as them. That was what we did when we were kids. Now can the older kids help the younger kids? So, and to me, it's not a money thing. It's a will to change, and it's a will to do things differently. And that's why it's a behavior thing.
I have a question. Do you think we need to be somewhat go North Korea on this, dictators? So we have to impose this because you see, I don't know if you've seen in China, they'll have these big open spaces and people are dancing and moving. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing or this is what Huawei or who has made everybody do. But it's interesting. It's just like this mass physical fitness. And even in my neighborhood, we have a lot of new Chinese immigrants in my neighborhood because, it drives the real estate prices up. But they're out walking. They're out doing Tai Chi in the park. And so there's something, culturally, but is it imposed on them? Like, do we have to impose this somehow? Like you said, from a government point of view? Because everybody seems to think like, I know what's best for me. But
sure, what
is
do you
that
think?
The solution?
I want to hear his opinion on this.
Well, I think, it's like anything. Is it better to actually create the situation for people to want to do it for sustainability long term? I think where the imposing needs to go on is on the systems. I think our systems right now are not good. They suck in many ways. And that's where the imposing needs to go on. That's where I think the greatest potential is. I
agree. And I also think a lot of the attitude at home. I think if more parents spoke up about it.
Yep.
And then, what happened to the days where the parents used to come down to town hall or show up to the gymnasium and would protest or would fight for specific things that they wanted in that community for their children? Like, you just don't see it anymore. I've never heard of a parent calling up a school and getting upset that Johnny Smith my son's, schoolmate outscored my son on the test, yet they're allowed to call up and complain if, my son loses a game or his son loses a game. It's disgusting. It's no different.
Yeah.
It's no different. Like if you score the highest score in a class, you win. You win the test game. Call it what you want. Like,
yeah.
the highest, and teachers will normally turn around and say, "Oh, Jane Smith just
way to go."
Yeah, and they point that out. Like, if my son ever came home and said, "Oh, I was upset that she got 100 and I got an 88," I'm gonna be like, "Dude, it's your problem, man. Proof's in the pudding, brother. Like, you get a hit today. Like, that's part of life, man. Work harder or understand that you're not always gonna get hits every game. Like, I think these are certain values and laws." Not laws. Yeah, they're laws that I follow at home, but they're also values that's been instilled in me since I'm a young child, and I'm going to pass that along to my kids. Otherwise, I feel like they're going to grow up to not have any work ethic, and they're going to be brats. Basically,
yeah. I mean, what Drew said about the system is important, because, like, as a parent, and I don't know if you're the same, but if something isn't working and the school isn't doing it, like, I'll go complain, and I've coached sports at the school. And I found that tough, because I said, okay, I want to coach these days. Well, the gym's not open, because that means I have to stay late and, supervise you. And so that's tough. And so what I ended up doing is I take my kids out of the school and I do it myself. I'll teach them how to run. I'll teach them how to throw.
Yeah. And
is that part of the problem? Am I just going like, screw the system and I'll just do it myself? Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, that's where I say the system is not flexible. It's not meeting. This whole concept of customer service seems to have gone out the freaking window. And it is fascinating, because school now, in our country, there's teachers unions and everything else. And our whole system is built around the idea that schools are actually, they're there to service kids. They're not there to service kids. They're there to service the teacher. The school day is only getting shorter and shorter, and that's not for the kid. That's the union that says, nope, we want the same amount of money, but we want to work class size, the whole 9 yards, right? Yeah. Is part of this piece. Is it we need to get smarter and understand, what do we want as an outcome, and work back from that. Right now, we're settling for really low outcome, right? And to me, that's just not acceptable.
Yeah, when the teachers go on strike, what's the first thing they pull?
Oh yeah, we're doing this for the kids.
We're not coaching. We're not doing after school programs. Yeah. So it's like,
and then you do that, you're ostracized.
When enough people are in uproar about something gets done. It's like MLB.
Yeah, that's right.
Like when the baseball players went on strike and they took baseball away for us for a half a season. At the end of the day, they're not going to continue. MLB is not going to continue doing that. The players need to work, and you end up coming up with some type of a compromise. And right now, I still believe that a big problem with this stems at home with the parents, because they're accepting this to happen. My kids, I get asked every day, why are your kids so into working out and this and that? And I'm like, because I almost chased them away from it. I almost took a reverse psychology approach to it. And I would be going outside to the jungle gym to do pull-ups or swing kettlebells or battle ropes or sprint. And they asked me to come out. I'd be like, no, this is big boy stuff. Oh, no, you want to come out? No, that's fine. You could follow me. But when you get bored of it, I want you to go inside, because this is just – and I took a different approach. And they saw me do that. And they saw me eat right. And they saw consistency and dedication that I had towards this. And now I get home the other day, and my daughter's 12 years old doing a bodyweight workout. And she's running around the backyard. Like, what are you trying to do? She's like, get ready for school. I love feeling healthy. And she's going in, and we're eating food, and she's 12 years old. And her and I are out at dinner with my son and my daughter and my wife, and my son orders a pretzel, and she's looking at me. She goes, "Oh, this is killing me." I said, "Have a bite of it." She goes, "No, I want to stay disciplined." Like, she's learning that from. And I want her to have fun. I want her to be a child. I want her to have ice cream. Trust me. But I also think a lot of this stems at home. How can a parent call me? How can a parent call me up and say, "Well, how do you get them to do that?" I'm going to say, start doing it yourself. You follow me?
Yeah.
So it starts at home.
Yeah. No, and that's a big, and that's what I said earlier, right? Is the parent had a huge role in this, either as blocker or as a motivator, or as a lack of motivator, right? And what you did was, you didn't push them and say, "I need you to come out here and do this with me." You didn't say that to them, right? You went out and did it yourself, and you created the environment for them to go out and figure out, do I want to do this? And then when they figured that out, guess what? Now you got them hooked. You don't have to tell them to do it because now they want to do it.
Right. And like anything else with a young child, you got to make it about a good experience.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go beat the living crap out of them, well, guess what? They're not going to come back, and you got to shut them down early. And that's just, these are simple things that you'd expect people to know to do. But no, the dad wants the son to be the next Tiger Woods. I've seen it in here. I've had parents come in here. I had a couple come in here with a son and daughter that was probably 9 and 10 years old. They asked us to go, but we have a little golf bay area. They asked us to come look at their swing. I'm like, oh my God, these kids aren't even 10 or not even 10 years old yet, I don't think. And the positions these kids were getting into were exceptional. And my brother, who's won the Met Golf Association Player of the Year, I think 2 or 3 times, has made U.S. Amateur like a dozen times. He's a pretty good player. Looked at me, and we just looked at the couple, and we started laughing. And we go, what should we do? We said, let them have fun. And they got upset with us. No, we want to put them in. We want to make sure. I'm going to tell you something right now. You're going to screw these kids up. Yeah. I said, I don't care. I don't want your business. I don't need it. If you're going to walk out of here, you came to me for my opinion. I'm giving you my opinion.
Yeah.
If you go and you put the shackles on them, they're either going to never pick up a golf club again, or you're going to realize pretty quickly that there's a lot of talent out there. It's probably the reason why it's the hardest sport to go pro in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
you're right. There are so many parents that see the kids are already, they're moving in the right direction. They want to accelerate the process, as you say, right? And what can I do to make them better? Well, let them go play with other kids, have some fun, but it is fascinating. They want something that should happen when they're 20 to happen when they're 12.
Right. And what percentage of kids do you think make it at that level whose parents try and fast track them?
Oh, shocking.
It's getting worse.
It is.
And when I say that, I say, let's take all the professional athletes out there today, like all of them who've made it. I wonder what percentage of them had their parents like literally pushing their face into it. I mean, yes, you have your Tiger Woods story.
Yeah.
What percentage do you think out of the people who've made it actually had that? I hear different stories. I hear I was with Aubrey Huff, who played Major League ball player, won 2 World Series with the Giants. And he's like, I think his father died at a young age, and his grandfather and his mom bought him a batting cage, and he was upset, and he was going in, and he just started hitting balls every day, and he was envisioning.
It was his coping strategy, probably.
Yeah, it was his coping strategy. So what is he doing? Every day he told me, he goes, every day I had 200 balls. Every day I had 200 balls. And I was from Texas, so I was envisioning I was playing in the World Series for the Texas Rangers. So what happens? Fast forward 15, 20 years. He's playing for San Francisco. He's playing against Texas. He's at that same ballpark he was at. What did he do in the 3rd inning? Home run. Hits a home run. And he said as he was walking around the bases, his body went numb. He couldn't remember everything. I remember the home run. It was in like 2002 or 2003. But that wasn't anyone standing there with his head in the dirt saying, you got to become a Major League ball player. He did it because it was his coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and baseball is an interesting animal. Like you look at Little League World Series, a world championship for 12-year-olds, right? Yeah. And you go, you look at the stats around Little League World Series. So there's probably been 70,000 kids who've come through from all countries that have come through and played in the Little League World Series since its inception. Like a lot of kids, right? How many of those kids do you think made the majors?
I would say less than, my guess would be probably less than 1%.
Oh yeah. It's less than 100. There's kids like
out of 70,000, 100 kids.
Yeah. Because you look at Little League World Series, and the problem is it's so intoxicating. The parents are in on it. The kids are in on it. And most of those kids done by 15, done by 14, right? Because it's way too much, way too fast, way too early, right? But nobody sees that. They live in the moment. They don't see and as what parents' big job is, they need to do the best things for their kids, right? And in many cases, they're not doing that.
Right.
And because they're getting caught up in the whole thing. In Canada, in our province, we usually send the Canadian, usually comes from BC, usually comes from Vancouver or whatever. And we just see this all the time. And you know, the parents are all jacked up and they're all excited and everything else. They're 12.
I know.
Like, it's just like, give me a break.
That's probably the only team sport that has that world stage at that young age, right?
For sure. At that age, for
Wow.
sure. Because you're going to remember, baseball is a late development sport, right? And we're worried about 12. And
you say that, looking back now on my little league career, and then fast forwarding to even my senior year in high school, the best players in little league were not even close
exactly
to the best players. I mean, they were like, I remember a couple kids who were the best pitchers, and you remember as a young kid, they weren't even starting. I mean, it was just, there was such a discrepancy. Hockey, I mean, I think a little bit different. Like, you see these kids in these youth, you know, in these youth programs, and they can skate and they can move the puck, and or like Derek, I don't know with running, like if you're fast, you're fast. Like, I don't know, like.
Well, no, even like when I was a kid, the kids who were good in grade 7, 8, 9, especially grade 9, because that's when some kids really move, you know, just in terms of their
puberty,
puberty and all that. The kids who were good in grade 8, 9, 10 were not good in 12 or even in university. Never saw them again. So yeah, it happens in everything. Early
developers, statistically, when you look at the research, early developers are rarely your best champions. Right. It's late developers. And there's a whole bunch of and it's fascinating because when you see that, because remember, when you're to be a good performer at 12, you usually have to be biologically and physiologically advanced, right? It's usually the bigger kid versus the smaller kid, right? And sometimes there's aberrations in that situation for sure. But, you know, you don't build your sports system around that. You can't build your sports system around Tiger Woods' pathway. Right. Tiger Woods' pathway is an outlier to the maximum.
Anomaly.
Totally an anomaly.
Yeah.
Right? But, you know, for every Tiger Woods, you know, you go and look at Jordan Spieth. You know, here's Jordan Spieth. He played multiple sports. He's a good guy. He's a normal guy, right?
Rounded, yeah.
You know, and it's fascinating. And look where Tiger is now. Like, it's been really tough, you know, because, and this is the thing that we don't think there's repercussions or things that happen. Like, there is an action reaction to everything, right? And when we put too much pressure on, this is the thing that's fascinating about gymnastics, artistic gymnastics. I mean, think about it, how young those kids are, how hardened they are, right? To be good at a young age. Like it's.
Now they're all in CrossFit.
Well, now they're on CrossFit. Yeah.
And how quickly it's done. Well, listen, guys, this is fascinating. I think the main takeaway, Derek, the main takeaways from today, recap it quickly. You could simplify.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Be a late developer. Take your time. Be patient. Go out and talk to people. Go out and talk to women on the street in New York.
That was my takeaway for sure.
Street fights, the whole nine. Oh, amazing.
We need to get fun back in the system.
Yeah.
We need to get fun back in the system for the kids who are in sport. We need to create the entry points for those kids who aren't in sport. And if we can create those things, I think we're going to get more kids who will come and stick.
It sounds like we have to educate the parents.
Monstrous.
And if all these parents and all these influencers are saying that they've come back stronger from their mistakes and they failed more than they succeeded, then don't be afraid to let your kids fail.
Yeah.
That's part of the whole process. If everyone on the internet is talking about how powerful that is, yet we want to take that away from our children, allow them to fail. It's okay. Coming home with tears. I came home crying when I was a young kid. I would never take that away. What I went through in the second grade is what put me in the position I'm in today. 100%. If you removed that time of my life from me, who knows where I would have been. I could have been, no offense, but banking and miserable and making money. It's amazing, but you get what I'm saying? So let's let our kids fail. It's going to be okay. They're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm a product of my failures too, right?
We all are. Right?
True.
Just ask our wives, right?
If anyone if anyone is interested in hearing more about you, is there any way that they can get in contact or go read about you on the internet? Do you have any social media, anything specific they can check out?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is FizzLitGuy. So, and I'll send that to you.
We'll publish all that.
Yeah. But generally I'm pretty accessible on social media. I'm more so than anything. I want people to just understand that they can change the behavior. We can change it. We got here. We can do a work back. We can, but we got to be compelled to do it.
Well, I'm optimistic now.
There you go. There you go.
If you're ever in New York City, please come by. I'd love to, grab some lunch with you, show you the club, come get a workout, whatever you want to do. But
likewise, if you come to the beautiful part of Canada.
Yeah, I'm going to get him out to Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
Out to Vancouver sooner or later. We're going to do it.
Absolutely.
Guys, enjoy.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care, Don. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.